Happy New Year, Robert. Happy New Year, everybody. It is time for a new Underdog. And if you thought, like, how can we ever find new underdogs? Well, Robert always finds a couple of interesting ones, and especially this episode. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, definitely, because I'm actually never struggling to find good examples. I just looked at the World Rapid and Blitz.
Mhm.
There were some really young kids making headlines in the tournament. I have two examples actually. First
Okay.
game is played by a young Russian kid, only 8 years old, with the name Roman Shoktsiev, if I pronounce correctly. And definitely you will hear more from this kid because he was beating Grandmaster after Grandmaster in this event. Only 8 years old. Actually, the
Scary.
funny thing is that I think the week or 2 weeks before he was playing a tournament in which he lost 100 rating points. So you would think, okay, maybe this kid is a little overrated. But okay, with Rapid and Blitz, different time control, you can see the skills of these young
Crazy.
kids, and especially in the game I'm going to show you, he's playing with the black pieces against an experienced grandmaster from Uzbekistan, Yakungir Fakidov.
Okay.
And well, I will just show you what happened, and after that I have another cool game I want to show you.
And
So
and the kid was black or white?
yeah, the kid was playing with the black
Uh-huh.
pieces indeed. So the
Shall we
grandmaster
turn the
with white.
board or
Yeah, possible. Yeah, I
Mhm.
was not even thinking about it. Once again, I always forget to do
No
that, but
worries,
thanks
that's why
for
I'm here.
pointing out. Yeah. So let's see. It's an opening starting with one c4, and it transposes to the Slav opening.
Mhm.
I'll just quickly go through it because this is kind of standard and not the most interesting part of the game. I would say symmetrical structure from a Slav. Both sides are getting their pieces out. Bishop goes back, knight c3, e6. Well, I said it's not the most interesting part. Now, white is coming up with an interesting move, at least, by playing here the move g4. Very aggressively.
What? That is very aggressive indeed. It's so much immediately h4 is like looks very interesting for to me, but yeah, nothing to fear yet.
White is thinking about ideas to
Wow.
launch its pawns.
Yeah.
One idea behind this move is actually quite positional. If you would make a developing move like knight e2, then probably black's idea is to play knight h5, try to catch that bishop.
Ah.
If that bishop is gone, it will be easier for black to get the bishop out to d6.
Huh.
So with the move g4, you're covering the h5 square. So it's also having a positional idea. Let's see what happens. Bishop e7, knight e2, castling kingside, and here other interesting idea by white as the king goes to f2. White is not going to castle, but wants to be flexible so that the king also helps supporting the pawns, keeping them well protected.
Mhm.
And who knows, maybe the rook can be useful on h1 at some point. So white is having a space advantage, and black is looking for a way to get its pieces to good square. So he played here the move knight e8. Shoktsiev, the young kid. I think for an 8 years old, this is also quite a remarkable move that you understand that the knight is not doing that well, and you know that it better goes to d6. So he's playing with a plan. I don't know what you were doing when you were 8 years old, but I was not thinking about what is a good square for my knight. So h4, knight d6,
So
and
of course you cannot take, by the way, because that'll open the H file, and white will clearly win probably.
actually it's maybe even a possibility, but it
Oh,
looks very risky,
yeah,
at
it
least
does.
from a human perspective, to take that h pawn. So I think good sense of danger
Hmm.
already developed by this young kid.
Also, yeah.
a3, probably planning to expand on the queen side at some point. And now f5 is played. So that's another advantage, having the knight on d6. You can launch the f-pawn. White closes the position with the move g5, so the king looks a little bit safer now. Rook c8. And white placed the queen on c2. Frankly speaking, I thought this was a little strange looking to put a queen on the
On the
file
file
that's
where the rook
post
is,
where
yeah.
it's by the rook, but okay, there's no immediate way to take
Mhm.
advantage of it. And well, there's some idea because after the moves knight a5, black is looking for ways to generate some play on the queen side. White goes b3 to retain control over that square. Bishop e8 is played, so maybe the bishop can be developed at some point. I'm not sure it's doing that much on e8, and it also disconnects the rooks. Queen b2 is played, so the queen supports the pawn. Knight on a5 doesn't look great, but very soon things are going to happen. Black goes for b5. Rook ac1, a6 is played.
Once again, no, it's sorry. There's this bishop which was on an unusual spot, which I didn't even spot.
Everything is well protected. There
Yeah,
are no
yeah.
tactical opportunities yet, but with the next move, with the move bishop g3, black is invited here to
Oh
play a
yeah,
nice move.
I
Can
see.
you see it?
Yeah, because I saw it already like 5-6 moves ago. At least I didn't see that move, but I saw the pattern. It should be knight e4 check, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
And I think white should never have played this move
yeah.
that early, because now knight e4 is there, and you see that the rook is standing in the file of the king, which means that there's no good way of taking the knight, because you do recapture with the f-pawn, opening up the file, and next move you regain the piece. And that's of course great news, because white's king is quite exposed. So
Yeah,
instead,
crazy.
white decided to take with the bishop. Maybe it's better
To
to
just move the
not
king,
take
huh?
at
Yeah,
all, move the king, but then at least you do get the possibility of taking the bishop. That's why bishop g3 was not a good move. If you wanted to go away with the bishop, then it would have been better placed on h2. But
true.
okay, rapid game, mistakes are made. So bishop takes e4 played, pawn takes, and here the knight comes to f4. That was one of the main ideas behind dropping back with the bishop to hit the
Hmm.
pawn. Actually, right now, taking the pawn on e6 is not really an issue, because that allows black to take the pawn on f3. So therefore, I think you don't really have to do something about that pawn on e6. Bishop d7 was played. So frankly speaking, this looks a little bit strange, going back and forth with the bishop. Pawn takes e4, d takes e4, and well, the position gets more and more open. Yeah, more pawns are coming off the board.
Yes,
And
it's unclear to me who is who has a clear advantage yet, though.
True. It's not that obvious. One important aspect is that the pawn on e4 cannot be taken here because of bishop
Yeah.
c6. And you see that the bishops are excelling in an open position. So therefore, the king gets out of the file. And well, now interestingly, I don't think that Sokchiev played really precisely. But what can you expect from an 8 years old? But we can definitely see that he is looking for tactical opportunities, and that's what I really appreciate in his play. As probably what Black should do is improve his worst piece, which is the knight on a5, and it can be brought back into play via b7 to d6, and probably at some point to f5. I think if the knight can move over to the other side of the board, there are chances to try to put the king under pressure. But instead, he does open the position with the move e5. This is
Oof.
getting very interesting, because he wants to get his bishop to a more active square.
Hmm.
Pawn takes e5. It's a pawn sacrifice. Bishop g4.
Very
The
good.
bishop wants to come to f3. But here, white ignores the threat by playing the move knight cd5. And the knight is fantastically placed here. And, well, the bishop can give a check. The king goes away, but there's no time to take the rook on h1, because it runs into the move rook takes c8.
Beautiful.
Queen takes c8, knight takes e7 with a fork. King goes into the corner, and it's knight takes c8. So here you see that bishop f3, doesn't really have its desired effect. We may think that black could have considered taking first on c1, but then the rook just recaptures and the threat is gone. White is taking over in the center. He's a pawn up with much more active pieces. I think that Sokchiev realized that in time. Therefore, he didn't play the move bishop f3. He played the move queen d7. But that's already a clear sign that things have gone wrong. There are various good moves. You got to reckon with knight b6 ideas. Frankly, I'm actually struggling to understand why this move was not played here at this
Maybe
point.
because there is a rook exchange now on f3. Well, maybe not.
Well, it's hard to say. What White did in the game is just move the king away, which is also possible because now after the move bishop to f3, there are not that many threats, and White can just further push. The pawn comes to e6, hits the queen, and the queen also got to keep control over the bishop, otherwise the knight will capture. Queen b7 was played, rook takes c8, rook takes, and now White is just offering the exchange of pieces. So looks like just an awful game. Things have gone horribly wrong for black, but stay tuned. Queen takes c1, bishop d6.
Wow.
Queen d2, and the knight comes back, but here knight f6 is played.
Nice check, yeah.
Nice check. Pawn takes, queen takes. This queen looks great, right? Together with a passed pawn. What can go wrong here? Well, pawn takes g5, and if you would give me this position and I've no time to think, I would just recapture the pawn on g5.
Yeah.
And that's just a very safe, solid move. You're not risking anything. But look what happened. White is playing for more. Goes for the move knight d5. Is ignoring the pawn on g5 and is looking for tactical opportunities. Maybe there's a check, or there's even an idea to play queen takes c6, followed by a knight fork
Cute.
on e7. So this looks also very strong. But here we see the tactical skills of a young kid. Can you see the best move for black, Arne?
All right, here we are. Interesting.
Look for your opportunities here.
Yes, also
Try
for
to
you at
figure
home.
out what is vulnerable.
Stop the video for a second and check out how can black actually turn this miserable looking game. That is quite interesting, because I cannot really see it right now.
Well, let me give you a little hint, is that when there are still queens and rooks on the board, your strongest pieces on the board, look at the opponent's king. Now the black queen is really far away from the action, but if it can get closer, who knows what can happen.
Yeah, it would be nice, but I mean, how to get the queen closer? Because as soon as I move the queen, the knight on c6 is dropping, apparently.
And now you think one step ahead, because maybe you should not care about that knight at all, but
my gosh,
play for a higher goal.
All right, so the only move I can see which is still not convincing to me is queen g7.
Fantastic. Very nice.
Really?
So let's check what happens if you do take the knight.
Queen h6?
No.
Or
no,
do you
no,
take on h4?
No.
Oh, there it is, a check. A hidden check on g2. b2.
An open diagonal. Queen b2, indeed.
And oh gosh, the mate threats.
King goes away, and it's checkmate. You see, this is what happens, and that's something you could have seen from afar, in the sense that White has pushed its pawns. You know that once pawns are being pushed, even in endgames, the weaknesses, they can be felt. And that's also the case here. So queen b2 is actually a very strong threat. And what the nice thing is, apart from that the knight cannot be captured, there is not a good check for White. The knight covers the back rank. So the queen is unable to give a check. Also, the knight doesn't have a good check here. So yeah,
wow.
what should be done? Well, apparently White is still winning here if he just captures the pawn. But can you imagine being low on time? This is a very risky move to play. You got to reckon with a queen check as well as with a move like queen takes g5. Let me show you one line. If you give a
Hmm.
check here, king h3, queen g2, king h4. This is the big difference. The king can come to that square. And if you give a check on h1, then the bishop can still block because it's defended by the queen. And that means that, well, the threats have been parried and black is probably still lost here.
Goodness.
That's one idea. And apparently, if you instead of giving a check on b2, if you would take the pawn on g5, now black is intending to give a check on h5 and try to infiltrate via the h file. That will probably also lead to checkmate in a few. But here the only move to win the game is the move king g1. I think this is a very difficult move to
Wow.
find, and the queen still protects the bishop.
Crazy.
Well, crazy lines, difficult to find, but I think with a move like queen g7, you at least show that you're looking for ways to seize the initiative.
Yeah.
White tried to stop the mating threats in a different way with the move bishop f2. There is no check any longer on b2, but the problem is that you can just take the pawn on h4, and now a new file for the queen has been opened. You're threatening checkmate on g2.
The craziest thing is that the queen cannot give any checks, as you already said, because the knight, this knight, which is just hanging around, covers d8 and b8.
Exactly, and that stays intact. Yeah, not
And
much
e7.
is changing. White is only reacting now to the threats against his own king, not able to create threats on his own. Therefore, the knight now has to drop back to protect the mating square. But then the queen comes anyway to b2. Hits the bishop.
Oh God, the dangers.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Knight goes back to protect the bishop, and the queen goes back to g7, renewing the threat, but the knight goes back. And here moves are repeated. Queen b2, knight h3, queen g7, knight f4. Is this a draw, or is there something else black can still do here?
Last chance, right? So knight e5 opens the checks for the queen. So
exactly, don't move the knight.
Yeah, that's not possible. So maybe what can we do? Oh yeah, queen a1.
Yes, you can go even one square further. Queen a1 with a mating threat on h1.
Uh-huh.
This is fantastic, and here white has a huge problem. There are two possibilities to stop mate. First one is bishop g1, which was not played in the game, but there follows queen e1 in that case, threatening checkmate on g3. Every move is like a punch in your face, right? It's
it is.
Got to react. Let me show you one line. If you move the knight away to cover this square, then you give up control over the e2 square. So the queen gives check,
over.
king h3, queen g2, king takes pawn, and it's checkmate on g4. So you cannot block the threat with your bishop. Knight g2 was played, interfering so that the bishop doesn't control the h1 square, but that allows the queen to come, hitting the knight and the bishop, of course. And that's simply too much. Still, no good check. White decided to take the pawn. Now you capture just the piece. With check, king moves up to h3, queen f1, king goes back, queen h1, king g3, queen to g1. And, well, two options. If you go to f4, it's checkmate on g4. The knight covers the e5 square. Whereas in case of king h3, there is bishop g4 with checkmate.
Oh, yeah, didn't even see that. I saw check mate in 3, I think, but yeah, that's nicer.
mate in 1 is usually better. Well, it's not a question between good and bad, but it's a nice line. Everything was with force, right? Only checks, no chance for white to escape.
How crazy. How must a Grandmaster of 2,600, come on, how must a Grandmaster feel losing against an 8-year-old. No matter how strong they are, it
Yeah,
must feel
you
awkward.
touch upon an interesting point, because I was actually thinking also, how does the 8-year-old feel? Probably this 8-year-old plays like he's just playing a regular game. He's playing just according to his strength. He's not thinking about who's his opponent.
Yeah,
I think already at the start of the game, there's where the advantage is, being the underdog, especially
true.
when you've not realized that you're an underdog yourself.
True. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God, you're right. Yeah. Out of a sudden, you don't have this pressure, this feeling. Well, maybe you
You're just
have,
playing
but not that
freely
much.
without
Yeah.
caring, and
At eight
um,
years.
and the Grandmaster, yeah, he's sitting there, and he knows that only a win will avoid any moment
Yeah.
of shame.
Wow.
Let's look at one other example from
Yes,
another game.
please.
Yeah, I just show it quickly. It's another game. White is Rudik Makarian, is an international master from Russia, but already a grandmaster strength. It's a matter of time before he becomes GM, and he's playing against Faustino Oro from Argentina.
Oh, yeah. He's
It's
considered a superstar.
he's a big star. He's 10 years old, but he's already rated 2350. He's
Hmm.
called the Lionel Messi of chess, and he has a beautiful name, yeah, because Oro means gold in Spanish.
Oh. Oh.
So he has a big future for sure.
All right.
10 years old, and I will just quickly show you the game.
And
He's playing
once
with the
again,
black
black.
pieces.
Yeah.
He's playing with black. I will just go through the opening. It's a popular line from the Vienna opening. We get a quite an open game. This is all seen before. Both sides are developing their pieces. You may think that black is having an ugly structure with a double pawn on the c file, but it's not a big issue, because you do get quite a lot of active piece play. You're protecting the pawn. You're getting your bishop to a nice diagonal.
Hmm.
So it's probably a little bit better for white, but it's a game which can explode anytime. Knight goes back to c3, knight d5, bishop goes back, and here black decides to open the position with the move c5.
Okay.
Pawn takes, bishop takes. Now the bishop is temporarily away from guarding the king side. White is looking for active possibilities here himself, threatening checkmate on h7. Of course, white will not win the game that quickly. Black goes for g6.
Whew.
But
Dodged.
here, the move h4 is played. Aggressive move.
Oh, yeah.
But we will see that the pawn will not come much further, because here the move knight b3 is played. So the knight is looking for opportunity to trade itself against the bishop on d2, and that means that if the pawn is on h5 and if you do take on d2, then later the knight may be eventually hanging.
Huh.
So there are some dynamical ideas, and I don't think white has the possibility to really launch an attack. Instead, Makarian played here the move bishop takes c4. So he's taking the pawn. Now the knight is no longer on a5. The pawn was not protected. Knight takes d2.
Oh, okay. I thought
Rook
about
takes
knight d4, to be honest.
Also interesting. You're attacking the queen, but after moving the queen away, probably is not
Okay.
obvious where the knight is going next, but it's certainly a possibility. Anyway, let's see what happens. Knight takes, rook takes, queen b8, hitting the pawn on e5. The white king is still in the center, and
True.
well, you're out of the pin on the d file, right? So the black knight is also able to move very soon. So here, well, various options you can take, either with a bishop or with a knight. Knight takes was played, probably not the most precise move, because after taking back with the pawn, you're hitting the bishop. So white gotta do something about it. Bishop decides to take the pawn on d5. But now queen takes e5 with check. And also the bishop on d5 is hanging.
Mm-hmm.
By far the safest move
yeah, to you.
Is queen e4.
Yes.
Which was not played for some reason. Don't ask me why. Knight e4 is the game's continuation. And now everything is hanging. Like if you do take the bishop on d5, then the bishop on c5 can probably be taken. Or actually, wait a second, I made a mistake here myself. After bishop takes d5, what do you play? Try to do better than me. Because if you do take with the queen, then
Yeah,
the
yeah, they
knight on
just take
e4
the
is
knight,
hanging.
exactly. That's almost game over.
What is the idea
So
behind White's move here? Little tactic.
yeah, I need to see how this is done best. Oh, of course, now I see it. Yeah. So easy. My goodness, so simple. Takes on d5.
Takes on d5. You cannot take here because of knight f6. That's the idea by dropping back with a knight to e4. So you're looking at that possible knight fork. Instead of taking on d5, rook ac8 is played. This is nice because you're getting the rook involved and you're setting up a huge threat. Now, with the move bishop takes f2, you're about to win the queen on c2. So white moves the queen away, attacking the bishop on b7, but black does move the bishop away to a6, preventing the white king from castling.
So annoying.
I think especially in a game with a shorter time control, this is not much fun to
Yeah.
play. White's position is still probably playable, but it's very important to keep everything protected. And with the move queen g3, white is offering the exchange of queens, which looks very logical, but it's a huge mistake. And I
Oof.
think this is the big moment of the game, maybe of the tournament for Faustino Oro. And this is your turn to find the best move for black.
Okay. A huge mistake for white. Now I'm really curious. Yeah, find the best move for black. So what about... that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work either. Don't want to delay. Oh, okay. There must be some check on c1 because that is terrifying. What is
Exactly.
it even possible to simply is it possible to simply take on f2, or is it a bit too
Well,
much?
that square is too many times
So
protected. It's
yeah.
not a move played in the game, but try to find a good square for your
Oh,
bishop
okay.
to go to.
Exactly. So the bishop has to be moved on c5. Now to where to is the best question. Is it simply b4?
Yeah. Beautiful,
Oh,
because
wow. Okay.
you're pinning the rook on d2. And
Yeah.
most importantly, the queen on e5 cannot be captured because
That's
it
mate.
does run into rook c1
Beautiful.
with checkmate. Here we see the power of the two bishops and the rook, of course. So bishop b4 is a brilliant move. You're threatening to win material. White has to take the bishop, but then the rook comes to c1 anyway. Only move is rook d1, but then you take the rook. King takes. The rook is no longer on the board, so the bishop on d5 can be captured with check. There is no knight f6. No time for that. You're in fact threatening to win the knight because it's a double attack, so the knight has to come back. But now look at the white king. It's stuck in the center. You're a pawn off as white, but you're under severe pressure now. Rook d8, threatening checkmate. Queen goes back to protect the knight, but now it's time to wrap up some pawns. Queen takes g2 with tempo, rook goes away, and you take another pawn on f2. The mating threats have been stopped, but then it's time to collect pawns. h5 was played, queen f4, so still everything is nicely under control. The queen cannot go away. Queen e3, offering the exchange of queens, but there's queen g4, check, also attacking pawn on h5, king to c1, but now the bishop went to d3. The bishop joins the attack, and there's no time for white even to take on g6 because it does run into rook c8 with mating ideas. White is forced to give up a lot of material. So instead of taking the pawn, white played the move b3, creating a square for the king. But after queen takes h5, that's another pawn. and things are looking just horrible. The game lasted only a few more moves. King b2, queen d5. Queen takes pawn. Well, also white is trying to grab some pawns, but it's also about king safety. Like we have seen in the other example, black's king is safe and white's king is wide open. Bishop goes away. So you're attacking the knight, rook e2. Now the queen comes in, hits the rook. Rook goes away and the queen enters on c2.
Hello there.
Yeah, king a3, queen check. If you go to a4, then at least you have queen a1 and you pick up the queen on a7. So the king went back, but now it's rook takes d2, and you have won a piece, and very soon you will win the game as well.
My God. So strong.
What do you think about these kids, Arne?
Scary, and these are definitely not the only ones, because we know already there's so many. There's a big boom of kids who are learning the theory like crazy too, and up to 20 to 30 moves. It's something very joyful for them. You probably know as well with training with Eline Röbers, who was also very young when you started training with her, how much she probably could get into her head in young age already.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah, so it's we will see. But this is the scariest part, is like, yeah, if you ever are playing in a tournament and you're facing like a very young child, maybe 8 to 10 years and far lower rated than you, but you know already, like there's something strange about it when this kid already has like 2 points out of 3 or something like that. Yeah, we all know about it. And for you kids at home who are watching this, keep up the good work. Be the underdog so you can be featured.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So Robert picks you up and we can show a game of yours against another Grandmaster. Yeah, fantastic. Nice way to start the new year 2024. I am looking forward to more Underdog games from you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We see each other soon enough. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.